I stood frozen on my doorstep at 3 a.m., rain pouring down, as one of the most powerful men in the city knelt before me in a soaking wet designer shirt, his tie askew, holding up a twisted paperclip bent into the shape of a ring. "Marry me, Eliza," he slurred, swaying slightly. "I've been in love with you since the moment you spilled coffee on my quarterly reports." If you're enjoying this story so far, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel for more unexpected romance stories that will warm your heart and keep you on the edge of your seat. The night that changed everything had started 12 hours earlier, with me running late to a meeting I was never supposed to attend. My alarm hadn't gone off. My coffee maker had broken. And now my bus was stuck in traffic. Perfect. Just perfect for my first day as executive assistant to the VP of Marketing at Horizon Enterprises. Come on, I muttered, checking my watch for the 5th time in 2 minutes. I was already 15 minutes late, and according to the employee handbook, punctuality was a reflection of one's commitment to excellence. I had a sinking feeling my commitment to excellence was currently being questioned. When I finally burst through the office doors, my hair windblown and my blouse slightly wrinkled, the receptionist gave me a sympathetic smile. "Eliza Parker?" she asked, and I nodded breathlessly. "They're waiting for you in conference room B, 3rd floor." I rushed to the elevator, mentally rehearsing my apology. The doors opened on the 3rd floor, revealing a sleek hallway with glass-walled conference rooms. I spotted conference room B and took a deep breath before pushing the door open. "I'm so sorry the words died in my throat. This wasn't a meeting with the VP of Marketing and her team. This was the executive board meeting. And sitting at the head of the table, fixing me with an icy stare, was none other than Alexander Reid, CEO of Horizon Enterprises. I'd seen his picture in the company newsletter and occasionally on business magazines. But those images hadn't captured the intensity of his gray eyes or the commanding presence that seemed to fill the room. "Ms. Parker, I presume?" His voice was deep, with a hint of irritation. "Yes, I'm sorry, there must be some mistake. I was supposed to meet with Ms. Collins, the VP of Marketing." A woman at the far end of the table cleared her throat. "That would be me. And our meeting is scheduled for 10 a.m. This is the quarterly executive review." My face burned with embarrassment. "I am so sorry for the interruption." I turned to leave, but not before catching Alexander Reid's gaze again. For a split second, I thought I saw the corner of his mouth twitch, as if suppressing a smile. "Wait," he said, stopping me in my tracks. "Since you're here, you might as well bring us coffee. The catering service seems to be running late as well." I nodded stiffly, grateful for the chance to escape the room. As I headed to the break room, I fought back tears of humiliation. What a way to start my new job. I carefully prepared a tray of coffees, determined to at least get this right. But as I re-entered the conference room, my heel caught on the carpet. I watched in horror as the tray tilted, sending cups of hot coffee cascading directly onto the papers spread in front of Alexander Reid. The room fell silent. Alexander stood slowly, coffee dripping from his expensive suit. I'm so sorry," I stammered, grabbing napkins and frantically trying to salvage the situation. "Those were the quarterly reports," he said quietly. 12 departments. 6 months of work. "I'll fix it," I promised desperately. "I can reprint them, reorganize them." "Ms. Parker." His voice cut through my panic. "I think you've done enough for one day." I fled the room, certain my career at Horizon Enterprises was over before it had even begun. To my surprise, I wasn't fired. Ms. Collins was understanding about the mix-up and even laughed about what she called my memorable introduction to the company. The next few weeks passed in a blur as I settled into my role, carefully avoiding the executive floor and especially Alexander Reid. But fate had other plans. 1 month after the coffee incident, I was working late, finishing a presentation for Ms. Collins. The office was nearly empty, the silence broken only by the hum of my computer and the occasional ping of the elevator. I was so absorbed in my work that I didn't notice someone had entered the break room until a voice spoke behind me. "You're here late." I spun around to find Alexander Reid leaning against the doorframe, his tie loosened and sleeves rolled up. He looked different somehow, less intimidating, more human. "Mr. Reid," I said, straightening in my chair. "I'm just finishing up a presentation." He nodded, moving to the coffee machine. "The marketing campaign for the new product line?" "Yes," I replied, surprised he knew about it. "I've heard good things about your work from Diane Collins." He poured himself a cup of coffee, then hesitated. "Would you like one?" "I promise not to spill it on you." The joke caught me off guard, and I couldn't help but laugh. "I think I'm the one who should be making that promise." He smiled, a genuine smile that transformed his face, and brought me a cup. "Consider us even." That night marked a subtle shift. Over the following weeks, I'd occasionally run into Alexander in the break room or elevator. Our conversations were brief but pleasant, focusing mainly on work. I learned he had taken over the company from his father 5 years ago and had doubled its value. He learned I had a degree in business communications and a minor in art history. Small details, exchanged in passing moments. Nothing that explained why, 3 months after the coffee incident, he invited me to join the marketing team for a presentation to the board. "Ms. Collins speaks highly of your contributions," he explained when I questioned my inclusion. "I think it's time you saw how your work translates to the bigger picture." The presentation was a success, and afterward, the team decided to celebrate at a nearby bar. To everyone's surprise, Alexander joined us. "First round's on me," he announced, loosening his tie as we settled into a corner booth. The night progressed from professional celebration to genuine camaraderie as drinks flowed and conversation shifted from work to personal stories. Alexander, now Alex after his third whiskey, revealed a side of himself few at the company ever saw: funny, self-deprecating, and surprisingly normal. "So wait," I said, laughing as he finished a story about a disastrous investor meeting. "You seriously told the Japanese delegation that their proposal was interesting, not knowing that was basically a polite rejection?" In my defense, he replied, his eyes crinkling with amusement, "I'd been awake for 36 hours straight finalizing the merger documents. My diplomatic filter was non-existent." "How did you fix it?" "I didn't. My father did. Last time he ever let me handle international relations." He took another sip of his drink, his expression softening. "He was good at smoothing over my rough edges." "You miss him," I observed quietly. Alex's eyes met mine, surprised by my perception. "Every day. He built this company from nothing. I'm just trying not to mess it up." "From what I've seen, you're doing more than that. The company's thriving under your leadership." He studied me for a moment. "Thank you, Eliza. That means more than you might think." As the night wore on, our colleagues gradually departed until only Alex and I remained, deep in conversation that had long since strayed from work topics to books, travel, and dreams deferred. "I always wanted to visit the Louvre," I admitted after learning about his recent trip to Paris. "All those art history classes, and I've never seen the works in person." "You should go," he said simply. "Life's too short to postpone the things that matter to you." "Says the man who works 80 hours a week," I teased. He laughed, conceding the point. "Touché. Perhaps I should take my own advice." When the bar announced last call, I was surprised to realize how late it had gotten. Alex insisted on calling me a car, walking me outside to wait. The night air was cool, a welcome relief after the warmth of the bar. Standing there, away from the office and the hierarchies that defined our interactions, I saw Alex clearly for perhaps the first time, not as the intimidating CEO, but as a man carrying the weight of expectations while trying to forge his own path. "I had fun tonight," I said, breaking the comfortable silence. "So did I." He hesitated, then added, "We should do this again sometime." Before I could respond, my car arrived. Alex opened the door for me, his hand briefly touching mine as I stepped past him. "Good night, Eliza," he said softly. "Good night, Alex." As the car pulled away, I found myself replaying our conversations, analyzing his words and expressions. Was I imagining the connection between us? And even if I wasn't, what could possibly come of it? He was the CEO, and I was just an assistant who had once spilled coffee all over his quarterly reports. The next morning, I arrived at work to find a small envelope on my desk. Inside was a museum ticket, not to the Louvre, but to a special exhibition of French Impressionist paintings at the City Art Museum. There was no note, no explanation. But I knew who it was from. That evening, I found Alex waiting outside the museum, hands in his pockets, looking uncharacteristically nervous. "I hope this wasn't too presumptuous," he said as I approached. "When you mentioned art history last night." "It's perfect," I assured him, genuinely touched by the gesture. "Though I'm surprised you remembered, considering how much whiskey was involved." He smiled, relaxing slightly. "I remember everything you say, Eliza." The exhibition was magnificent, but what I remember most about that evening was Alex's attentiveness as I explained the significance of various paintings, his genuine interest in my perspective. For a man accustomed to being the authority in every room, he seemed content to follow my lead, asking thoughtful questions and offering observations that revealed his own appreciation for art. After the museum, we had dinner at a small Italian restaurant where the owner greeted Alex by name and seated us at a secluded corner table. "I take it you come here often?" I asked as we settled in. "It was my father's favorite restaurant," he explained. "We used to come here to celebrate company milestones. Now I mostly come alone, when I need to think." "And tonight?" His eyes met mine across the table. "Tonight I wanted to share it with someone who might understand its significance." That dinner marked the beginning of what I can only describe as a clandestine relationship. We were careful at work, maintaining strictly professional interactions. But evenings and weekends became our time, museum visits, quiet dinners, long walks through the city parks. Alex revealed himself to be thoughtful, complex, and surprisingly vulnerable when he allowed himself to be. I learned about the pressure he felt following in his father's footsteps, his fears of disappointing the man's legacy. He learned about my dreams of eventually moving into creative direction, my complicated relationship with my mother, and my passion for photography. 3 months into our secret relationship, Alex invited me to his penthouse apartment for dinner. He cooked himself, a surprisingly decent pasta carbonara, and we ate on his balcony overlooking the city lights. "I have something to tell you," he said as we finished a bottle of wine. "The board is announcing a new corporate structure next week. We're expanding the creative department and creating a director position to oversee brand identity across all platforms." My heart sank. This was it, the moment when our personal relationship would collide with professional reality. He was telling me because the changes would affect my department. "I see," I said carefully. "That sounds like a positive development for the company. Diane Collins recommended you for the role." I stared at him, certain I'd misheard. "What?" "Your work has impressed everyone, Eliza. The campaign concepts you developed last month increased engagement by 40%. This promotion has nothing to do with us, it's entirely based on your merit." "Alex, I don't know what to say." He took my hand across the table. "Say yes. Take the position you deserve. And then we can finally stop hiding this." He gestured between us. "I've spoken with HR and the board. As long as we disclose our relationship and you don't report directly to me, there's no conflict of interest." "You've thought of everything," I said, still processing the implications. "Not everything." His expression grew serious. "I haven't figured out how to tell you that I'm in love with you without sounding like a cliché." My breath caught. Despite months of growing closeness, neither of us had spoken those words. "Try anyway," I whispered. He smiled, squeezing my hand. "I love you, Eliza Parker. Not because you're brilliant at your job or because you make me laugh or because you're beautiful, though all those things are true. I love you because when I'm with you, I'm not the CEO or the son trying to live up to his father's legacy. I'm just Alex. And that's enough." Tears welled in my eyes. "I love you too." That night changed everything between us. The secrecy ended, replaced by the challenge of navigating a public relationship within the corporate environment. There were whispers, of course, assumptions that my promotion was due to my relationship with the CEO rather than my abilities. But I let my work speak for itself, and gradually, the whispers faded. 6 months later, Alex suggested a weekend getaway to celebrate my successful launch of the company's rebranded image. We drove to a coastal town 3 hours from the city, staying at a charming bed and breakfast overlooking the ocean. Saturday evening, Alex seemed unusually nervous as we walked along the beach at sunset. "Is everything okay?" I asked as he checked his phone for the third time in 10 minutes. "Perfect," he assured me, tucking the phone away. "Just checking the time. There's somewhere I want to be at exactly 7:15. He led me to a secluded cove where, to my astonishment, a small table had been set up on the sand, complete with candles, champagne, and a covered silver platter. "Alex, what is this?" He pulled out my chair with a flourish. "Dinner with a view." As we ate, I noticed Alex growing increasingly distracted, checking his watch repeatedly. "Seriously, what's going on?" I finally asked. "You've barely touched your food." Instead of answering, he stood and offered me his hand. "Walk with me." We strolled along the water's edge until Alex suddenly stopped, pointing toward the horizon. "Look." I followed his gaze to see a small plane flying overhead, trailing a banner that read, "Eliza Parker, will you marry me?" "Alex." When I turned back to him, he was down on one knee, holding open a small velvet box containing the most beautiful ring I'd ever seen. "Eliza, you walked into my life and spilled coffee all over my quarterly reports, and somehow that turned out to be the best thing that ever happened to me. You challenge me, support me, and make me happier than I ever thought possible. Will you marry me?" Tears streamed down my face as I nodded, too overwhelmed to speak. Alex slipped the ring onto my finger, then stood to kiss me as the sun dipped below the horizon. It was perfect. Romantic. Meticulously planned. And completely different from what happened 3 weeks later. The night that would become legendary among our friends started innocuously enough. Alex had been working around the clock on a major acquisition, and his college friend Michael suggested a night out to help him decompress. "Just go," I urged when Alex called to apologize for canceling our dinner plans. "You need to relax, and I have plenty of work to catch up on anyway." "You're sure you don't mind?" "Positive. Have fun with the boys. Just don't do anything I wouldn't do." He laughed. "That still leaves me considerable latitude, Ms. Parker." I spent the evening at home, reviewing marketing proposals and eventually falling asleep on the couch with my laptop still open beside me. The sound of persistent knocking woke me I squinted at the clock, 3:17 a.m. Groggily, I made my way to the door, checking the peephole. My heart jumped when I saw Alex leaning against the wall, his normally immaculate appearance in complete disarray. I opened the door to find my fiancé swaying slightly, his expensive shirt soaked from the rain that had started earlier that night, his hair plastered to his forehead.